So, Titanfall 2 is among us. This is a launch day review. I was lucky enough to get the game a few days early, and I put a significant amount of time into both the campaign and multiplayer after the servers were switched on sometime, I think it was Wednesday evening UK time. Firstly, some context for my review. I bought the first Titanfall on launch. I thoroughly enjoyed the slick gameplay, but I have to say I basically hit the first regeneration, which is like the prestige mode of Titanfall, right? And I pretty much stopped playing it. I certainly don't begrudge Respawn Entertainment the money I paid for the 20 or 30 hours I got out of it, but it just didn't keep me coming back, like say the Battlefield multiplayer games do. In fact, I'm still playing Battlefield 1 right now and I'm absolutely loving it. I honestly had fairly middle of the road expectations for Titanfall 2. The hype just really wasn't there for me, and I heard a lot of bad things from the multiplayer beta, but I unfortunately didn't get time to try it for myself. I basically went into this expecting a solid, if unremarkable, 7 out of 10 game, and you know what, that would be totally fine. So let's dig right into the review, beginning with the campaign. I recorded this footage from very early on in the game to keep spoilers to a minimum, but I think it gives you a good idea of what you should expect. I have to say, I went into the campaign not expecting a whole lot. I thought this was just going to be a very tacked on single player offering to give the illusion of more value for basically the least amount of effort possible. I'm very glad to say that isn't the case at all. Titanfall 2's campaign is frequently jaw-dropping even, and basically manages to out Call of Duty, at least in terms of insane set pieces, and that epic scope that each successive game has tried to top, but they haven't really managed it. It's worth saying at the outset that the single player is only about 4.5 hours long on regular difficulty, and that includes the tutorial as well, but for the most part it's a superbly paced thrill ride and one of the most memorable FPS campaigns of the last few years. I won't go into the plot because frankly it's pretty much nonsense, and the thing people are really going to latch onto here is the relationship between the player character and his Titan pal BT. Now, the marketing for this game had me worried that it was going to try too hard to generate this emotional bond between man and machine, and it would just kind of come off as unintentionally hilarious. Thankfully that's not the case at all. Respawn basically pulled off humanizing the Titan by giving him this legitimately, genuinely likable personality with some really memorable, funny quips that help strengthen the bond between player and machine. This could have gone so horribly wrong, but they totally nailed it. I'm so glad that my suspicions were just way off the mark completely. One of the most surprising things about the campaign though is actually how little you use the Titan overall, especially in the first half of the game. I mean, you're mostly on foot with occasional bursts of giant fucking robot mayhem that you'd think would beg frustration, but it really just builds anticipation and tension for when you get to let loose with the giant machines. It certainly helps that even the regular pilot-based shooting and traversal is just so insanely slick and well engineered. Now, I won't go into spoilers, but at about the 2-hour mark through the campaign is where it really slams into gear, and basically the second half of the campaign is just fucking relentless, and I mean that in the best way possible. There's one gimmicky level about halfway through, and I won't say what the gimmick is, but it's one of the cleverest mechanics I've seen in an FPS game, hell, just a video game, in quite some time. It's perfectly executed, the pacing is excellent, and by the time it all ended, you know what, I was so exhausted, and I mean that in a good way, that it really didn't feel like I just finished a 4-hour game. This felt like I'd just finished like Uncharted 4, which is what, 13, 14, 15 hours long. I almost never ever replay campaigns in games. I would honestly, seriously consider it here because those last 2 hours in particular are like your favourite non-existent action movie come to life. It is the idea of video games as power fantasy taken to its most logically ridiculous conclusion, at least as far as current gen technology allows. In case you haven't already guessed, I had a fucking blast with this campaign, and when you compare it to the first game's piss-poor excuse for a single-player offering, I think a lot of people will be very pleasantly surprised. I just hope that Titanfall 3 gets a proper, fleshed-out 6 to 7 hour single-player campaign, assuming they can maintain the same mastery of pacing near enough. If not, you know what, I'm basically okay with a 4-hour campaign, because it's pretty much just like an aperitif here anyway. I think most people buy these games for the multiplayer, and a fun blastathon like this is a fun diversion for a few hours of kicks, and that's basically just fine. Oh, and while I remember, if you're a trophy hunter, you're going to love this game, and the campaign in particular. I racked up like 30 trophies without putting any real effort in. I'm at like 60% already. I don't even do trophy hunting, so I imagine this could be a really easy platinum for whoever that interests. And now let's talk about the multiplayer, which was certainly my reason for buying this game. I haven't regenerated yet, but I probably will over the weekend. But I've still put a bunch of time into the multiplayer, and yeah, it's exactly what fans will basically expect. I can't comment on how it compares to the beta, but it's insanely fast-paced, ridiculously smooth, visually impressive mayhem. I really loved the multiplayer in the first game, even if it didn't keep me around for months. I kind of feel the same will be true here, to be honest. The combat and traversal are amazing, and it might be the maps that just make it feel a little more ordinary overall. It does feel very familiar to the first game's multiplayer, which isn't an issue in the slightest, but I also didn't really feel like it innovated in any particular way, which is kind of a problem with this genre as a whole. Most of the match types are basically the same, though hardpoint has been altered to be amped hardpoint, where you can capture hardpoints twice for extra points, which is perfectly fun. And then there's bounty hunt, where you essentially get money for kills, and then you have to try and bank that money before someone kills you. The centerpiece is once again going to be attrition, because it's the meat and potatoes of the game and just a ridiculous amount of fun. Most of the other modes simply had me craving the simplicity of attrition after a while, and it's easy to see why most players will probably spend a lot, if not most of their time, in attrition mode. Of course, as is expected these days, there are also a metric shit ton of customization options. Unlockables, rewards, all of that stuff to keep your dopamine hits coming in steadily. That's really all I have to say about it. It definitely takes a lot longer to hit the level cap than it did in the first game, which is nice, but I have serious doubts I'll be playing it much past my first regeneration, especially when I'm still having so much fun with Battlefield 1 right now. That may sound negative, but look, if you love Titanfall 1's multiplayer like I did, this is mostly more of the same and really just a lot of frantic fun. I don't think the gameplay has really been elevated in the way I would have liked, but minute to minute, I had a lot of fun with it. So what's the verdict? Well, let's quickly talk about a few other things. In terms of presentation, this is absolutely first rate. The graphics are remarkable throughout in both the campaign and even the more frantic multiplayer moments. I didn't really get a lot of frame rate dropping or any stuttering like that, which is quite problematic on Battlefield 1 for instance. Also the voice acting, the score, sound effects, they're all totally top notch, no question about that. The UI is also extremely quick to move around, which is one undeniable area where the game just dumps on Battlefield 1, which, for as much as I love it, is the drizzling shits when it comes to manoeuvring around slow, lumbering menus. It's horrible, I hate it. Here though, like basically everything else in the game, it is smooth as butter. A few other nice things to savour as well. The day one patch is only 88 megabytes, which really shows how meticulously Respawn worked to get this game in shape. There's none of this 11 gigabyte day one patch bullshit that we all hate. Unless you live in the desert, you'll probably be up and running the game in like a minute. Also, I had just one crash during my extended time with the game, so it basically just seems to be an extremely well engineered, dare I say even QA tested game from top to bottom. And now we come to the score. Titanfall 2's campaign is surprising in many ways, and leaves me hopeful for what they might do in the future. The multiplayer suite is electrifyingly entertaining, even if its familiarity is a little disappointing. Overall though, this is a great FPS package. If you enjoyed the first game, you really shouldn't hesitate to pick this up. I think it will be very much worth your money. If you're mainly just curious about the campaign, do the sensible thing and wait for a sale. But on the whole, Titanfall 2 significantly overshot my expectations, and is probably one of the most pleasant surprises I've played all year, to be honest. Sure, it doesn't knock Battlefield 1 off my top spot for FPS games this year, but after playing the Infinite Warfare multiplayer beta last week, I'm pretty confident Titanfall has that one beat. Hell, there's not even a season pass or paid DLC here. It's all going to be free, which really feels like something to support in this day and age. So, Titanfall 2 gets an 8.4 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching, and please do like, subscribe and follow me on Twitter if you enjoyed this review. The next game I'll probably be reviewing is actually Infinite Warfare, so until then, I'll be here from dusk till dawn.